All right. So whenever you're ready, you can begin. All the best and good luck.
Thank you. So, a very good morning to Mr. E and my group mates. As you can see from the cover slide, my group mates and I have chosen to present about Dick and Carey model and the golden ratio. So, first and foremost, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Matilda, and I will be explaining an overview on the Dick and Carey model. This model is a nine-step process for planning and designing effective learning initiatives. This model was first proposed in a book called The Systemic Design of Instruction, and it was published in 1978 by Walter Dick and Lou Carey. So, if anyone is wondering why the model is called that way, it's because it was named after the creators themselves. So, essentially, this model is an instructional design model which emphasizes on the interrelationship between elements in the design process, such as, which you can see in the slide, educational content, context, learning behavior, and instructional technique. This means that the model does not only focus on the elements individually, but rather it covers all of the elements. In other words, as Dick and Carey believes it, the teachers, learners, materials, instructional activities, delivery system, and as well as learning, they all cooperate together to produce the desired goal. So before getting into the benefits of using the Dick and Carey model, let's take a look of the nine-step approach to this instructional design, which will be presented by my friend Irman.
Okay, Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Irman Ismadi. So I'll be presenting about how you can apply the 9 steps of Dick and Carey's model in a learner's learning process. So the first step of the application is to identify goals and objectives. This is important for the learner because the learner needs to know what they will learn by the end of the lesson. That in a way will give them the motivation and the drive to actually know what they will be able to do with the lesson that they get. So it is also important for them to be able to apply what they have learned in the real world. So for us, for example, if we are educators, we have to implement everything that is possible to be used further on in the future. So the next step that I'll be explaining is complete instructional analysis. This is where the educators will try to get as many information about the learners as possible. For example, their prior knowledge, what they have learned before, and what they lack of. This will help the educator to properly map out what they need to teach and what they need to focus on more instead of any other topics. So when we are done with the second step, we will move on to the third one, which is the entry behavior and learners' characteristics. This is where the educator will learn about the learners themselves because it is important for them to know how they are in terms of their behavior and their attitude and what motivates them, what drives them towards learning something. For example, if a student is interested in something that is more interactive, maybe we can create an online portal that is interactive to them rather than just reading from a text. The fourth one is to performance objectives. This is specifically to tell them what they have to master. We have to explain to them, okay, this is what you lack of, and this is what you should be focusing on more. This, in a way, will help us track their progress. So when we know that they are lacking something, for example, they lack grammar. So conduct an activity in relates to grammar, and if there's any improvement, we will be able to see it through performance objectives. Moving on to the fifth step, which is develop criterion reference e-learning. This is a form of assessment. So when we are doing online classes, for example, like right now we're doing ODL, it is important to know what assessments are effective for them and what is easier for them to do. So for example, if you are doing an online class, it is easier for them to answer multiple choice questions and an interactive one as compared to probably making them do a handwritten essay, for example. It would be much easier for them to apply in their learning. The sixth step, moving on, is develop instructional e-learning strategy. This is where we consider the best ways for us to teach the course. For example, if you're teaching language, what is the best way? What is the best method for you to use? For them to understand easily, for them to be able to use it easily, and for them to be able to adapt to whatever they're going to do further on. And it also should include various activities. So, for example, if you are teaching a certain content, it should not only be based on books or text, it should also have activities that maybe can interest them in a way that they would feel that it is more, it is better to learn in that way rather than just reading and just understanding and answering questions. The seventh step is learning materials and online activities. This is one of the most important steps in Dick and Carey's model. It's because what you choose to teach them and what you choose to use to teach them is what makes them interested into the topic. So if you choose something that is lengthy and something that does not have interesting topics in it, they might get bored and they might lack the attention span that they should have. So when creating learning content, for example, you should use more tutorials and multimedia aids because we all know that multimedia makes us more interested towards learning something. The eighth step is to carry out formative evaluation. Now, when we talk about formative evaluation, it is in a way for you to carry out the lesson to see whether what you have created is effective for them or not. It is like a trial method or a beta version. When you use this beta version, you will be able to see if it's effective or not, if the materials used are sufficient for them, and if whatever topic that you are trying to teach, they will be able to understand it. So if it's not, there's always room for you to improve your teaching method or your materials that you used. The last step is to carry out a summative evaluation. It's different from formative because in summative evaluation is when you finally assess them on the content itself. So when you're teaching them a course, summative evaluation is like a final assessment, probably a test or maybe an exam. It is to see throughout the whole lesson whether they understand everything or not. So for example, at the beginning, we know that they lack certain parts of the lesson. So towards the end, in the summative evaluation, we evaluate whether the part that they are lacking of, whether there's any improvement or it's just the same. If it's the same, that means the teaching method that we have used is not as effective as we thought. So moving on to the next part that will be explained by Matilda.
Oh, yes. So overall, the closest and easiest example we could think of that may fit the whole idea of this model is how UITM lecturers are conducting online classes for their students, such as using the platform UFuture and Google Classroom. In the first and second step mentioned by Irman earlier, which was to identify goals and objectives, as well as complete instructional analysis, as students, we are very familiar to this thing called entrance survey, in which some question asks us about our level in understanding in the subject. And then throughout the semester, the lecturers have assignments for the students in which they would keep check from time to time. And these assignments are usually posted on Google Classroom. And then there's also our SUFO or exit survey where the questions ask us about our level of understanding and knowledge at the end of the semester. So that way, the lecturers are able to keep track of the students' progress and performances. So to briefly put it, all these 9 steps that were explained by Eamon are what our lecturers go through in obvious way and also in the background in order to conduct e-learning activities. So if we go back to the previous slide, the first one, which I explained, we can see the benefits of this model. So why should you, or especially instructors, use this model? This is because the Dick and Carey model gives instructors more opportunities to adapt instruction to fit the needs of students. Besides that, this model also focuses on the entire design process and the connection between each components. And lastly, the Dick and Carey model breaks complex instruction into smaller and more specific components. And that is all for the Dick and Carey model.
Hello, Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to Mr. E. My name is Siti Sarah binti Zulkarnain and I will be explaining about the golden ratio. So the golden ratio was first used by the German term goldener snakes, or in English term it is golden section, to describe the ratio by Martin Ohm in 1835. And then later on, James Sully used the equivalent English term, which is golden ratio, in 1875. By 1910, mathematician Mark Barr began using the Greek letter pi as a symbol for the golden ratio. Now, the golden ratio is a mathematical ratio that dictates the most pleasing proportions of a shape or structure. It is to create clear and understandable designs, pages that are well organized, balanced, easy to read, and will naturally result in better performance experience for users. And another term you will hear associated with the calculation of the golden ratio is the Fibonacci sequence. The Fibonacci sequence is what creates the golden spiral. As you can see, I already attached the picture beside here. And moving on. Mm, Now, why is it important for web developer and designer to use the golden ratio in their products and their designs? It is to determine the right typography in defining hierarchy, which means that whenever a web developer want to create a website and they would want to put text like headings, subheadings, and body text, pictures, so they would have a perfect idea of what kind of font and what size do you want to put the heading. For example, if it's 56 points, then the subheadings will be lower than 56 points, and the body text will be much smaller than the subheadings. So it is easy and more smooth and well paced for the readers to read whatever it is on their webs. And besides that, it is for cropping and resizing images. So whenever images imply in a design, it is crucial to choose an image that is the right size, or it is crucial to know how far should you crop an image for it to fit and for it to be pleasing to see for the viewers. And the next reason why golden ratio is important is for layout and logo development, which I will be explaining in my last slide. Mhm. All right, how to apply golden ratio in your design works. Applying the golden ratio design seems much simpler than perceiving the formula at face value. As I've already attached the formula that is commonly used for a golden ratio, which is here. The golden ratio is defined as 1 to 1.618, which can be rounded off to 1.62. Now, how to imply it on the website layout is the example that I put above here. If you have a main bar, a main dimension that is 960 points, for example, and you wanted to create one main bar and one sidebar, which is the main bar is represented by the darker green side, and the sidebar is the lighter green side. So you would take this 960 points and divide it by the golden ratio, which is 1.618, and you will get 593 points. And that will be your main bar, the darker green section. And to get the sidebar dimension, you will only have to minus 960 points by 593 points, and then you will get your 367 points for your sidebar. Now let's say if you want to add another bar below the lighter green, you could take the point across the horizontal point from the top of the 360 points to the bottom, and you could also divide it by 1.618, and you will get the size or dimension that you want to add, whether it will be another bar or another image that you want to add. So that will create a pleasing website design flow for users. And besides that, not just that, the golden ratio can also be used in photography. So the reason for this is simple. The golden ratio allows for a composition that is perfectly balanced from a viewer's perspective, creating a photograph that is most pleasing to the human eye aside from the photography design, or may I say composition. It can also be applied to logo development in companies and products logo. They also use golden ratio to create a perfect design that will be eye-catching and memorable for users. So this ratio This tool, the golden ratio, will give a web developer and designer more leverage and more ideas as to how they would want to start their designs and products development. And this is all from me and our team. Do you have a question for us, Mr. E?